The garden was alive with music, sunlight, and the vibrant laughter of women gathered for a small but lively event in Malibu. The occasion marked the spring launch of the Radiant Project, a wellness initiative celebrating modern motherhood, and Isla Penrose was at the heart of it all. Dressed in a breezy white cotton dress, hair loosely pinned, she moved with the unbothered grace of someone who had finally settled into her second act. Children played on the lawn while stylists, influencers, and journalists mingled, sipping pale rose and discussing parenting trends. At some point during the relaxed chaos, someone pulled out a speaker and started playing the viral Baby Mama anthem. The crowd's attention shifted quickly. Everyone turned toward Isla, urging her to dance. After a moment of mock hesitation, she gave in, stepping into the grass and breaking into a playful series of exaggerated moves. She twirled once, cupped her belly dramatically, though she was no longer pregnant, and lip-synced the lyrics with a wink. The crowd whooped. Someone filmed it, then someone else. And by the end of the afternoon, Isla's social media team had clipped the footage and uploaded it to her official Instagram with a cheeky caption. It took less than 4 hours for the video to make the rounds online. Fans praised her for being authentic and carefree. Parenting pages reposted it with heart emojis. Isla closed her phone for the night feeling light and full of joy. Thousands of miles away, across the ocean in the stony stillness of Wellington Estate, Thomas Ashbury was just sitting down to his usual press briefing when the clip appeared in one of the tabloid recaps. He leaned forward as the video played, eyes fixed on the screen while Isla danced with abandon beneath the California sun. Around him, the palace communications team grew very still. No one laughed, no one spoke. The senior aide quietly cleared his throat, then moved on to the next item on the agenda. Later that evening, Thomas sat alone in his room at the estate, scrolling through the comment section. He saw fans praising Isla's freedom, but he also caught sight of the articles already brewing, "A Duchess No More?" and "Royal Roots, Hollywood Moves." He set the phone down slowly, then turned to the window where the thick English mist had begun to settle against the glass. He didn't feel anger. He felt the distant ache of something he couldn't name, and then he sent no message, made no call. He simply went to bed without saying her name. By morning, the ripple from Isla's dance had grown into a full swell. The video had now made its way onto breakfast television, late-night commentary, and even a few morning radio call-ins debating whether the move was charming or childish. Isla awoke to a buzzing phone, dozens of text messages, and a gleaming notification panel glowing with reactions. She stretched, smiled faintly at the reaction, and padded barefoot into the kitchen where her assistant was already scrolling through news headlines. Across the Atlantic, within the polished halls of Wellington Estate, Thomas stepped into the royal media chamber for a scheduled debrief with the communications team. The air was tight with anticipation. Someone had already pulled the most viral clip onto the projector, a still of Isla mid-spin, surrounded by laughing women, and the caption "Baby Mama Energy" in bold above her head. Thomas stood in silence for a long time, hands behind his back, jaw set. The aides waited for a reaction. He gave none, but not everyone in the palace chose discretion. That afternoon, the official Wellington TikTok account, which typically shared reserved charity moments and rare glimpses of archival royal history, posted something unusually informal. The video featured Thomas's older brother, Lord William, visiting a rural agricultural fair. As he stood near a row of cows, a background song began to play softly, the instrumental of the same viral Baby Mama track. William looked at the camera, paused for comedic effect, and with a slight grin, muttered something about not quite the royal jig we'd expected. Then he winked. It was a subtle jab, but unmistakable. Within hours, the internet had seized it. The royal clapback became a trending topic. Edits began appearing across platform split screens of Isla dancing and William smirking. Memes sprouted like wildfire. And while the public laughed, Isla sat frozen in front of her phone, watching it loop again and again. Her smile faded, not because of the teasing, but because she knew where it had come from. Thomas returned home from a board meeting later that night. Isla waited for him in the kitchen, arms crossed loosely, eyes uncertain. He placed his briefcase down slowly and walked past her to the refrigerator. She asked if he had seen the video. He nodded once. Then he opened a bottle of water, took a sip, and said they'd been monitoring the press cycle. That Williams' team had gone off script but meant no harm. And then he added, almost as an afterthought, that next time, a heads up about anything playful might be wise. Isla didn't respond. She turned, walked upstairs, and sat beside Theo's crib for a long while. Downstairs, Thomas remained at the table, staring at the muted television where commentators replayed his brother's wink, like a moment of national theater. Neither of them spoke about it again that night, but the silence between them no longer felt neutral. It felt like something carefully curated, like the palace itself silent, clean, and waiting to be filled with anything but noise. The following days moved slowly, as if time itself had become unsure of how to behave inside their home. Isla spent most mornings on the patio, scrolling through her phone, watching new versions of the dance clip rise and fall in popularity. At first, she tried to laugh with them. She reshared 1 or 2 positive posts, offered a short caption about embracing joy. But each time she did, her hand hesitated longer above the share button. The more viral it became, the smaller she started to feel inside her own story. Inside the house, Thomas had grown quieter. Not cold, not sharp, just methodically absent. He left early for meetings, returned late, and spoke only in short, courteous exchanges. He responded to Isla as if she were a guest in a carefully monitored, diplomatic space. He made no direct reference to the video, or to Lord William's smirk, or to the interviews now popping up online questioning Isla's appropriateness. But every time his phone buzzed with a news alert, he picked it up faster than usual. And every time he did, Isla noticed. When they were alone, the air between them felt thick with all the things neither wanted to say. Once, Isla brought up a charity event she'd been invited to, one focused on maternal health in underserved communities. Thomas responded with a nod, then asked whether it was open to press. When she said yes, he merely suggested she speak to her media team first. Then he turned his attention to his tablet, ending the conversation without ever looking up. At night, he began falling asleep in the guest bedroom, claiming late-night Zoom calls with London and early alarms that might wake the baby. Isla stopped asking why. Instead, she focused on Theo, on feeding him, bathing him, reading the same bedtime book 3 times in a row. She clung to their shared routine as if it were the last piece of rhythm she could still control. One evening, while Thomas sat in his car outside the house, scrolling through royal correspondence on his phone, he received a short message from Lord William, a link to a fashion blog criticizing Isla's dress during the dance, followed by a single emoji and eyebrow raise. Thomas stared at the message, then locked his phone and sat there in the dark, gripping the steering wheel. He didn't respond. Not to William, not to the tension at home, not to the feeling that the house they had built together had begun to drift from being a home into something else, an agreement, a truce, a space where conversations avoided edges and laughter never reached both sides of a room. Upstairs, Isla lay awake in the master bedroom, staring at the ceiling, wondering how quickly something joyful could become weaponized. Not by enemies, but by family. And worse, how quickly the man beside her could forget that once she had danced just to make him smile. 2 weeks later, Isla stood at the edge of her bedroom window, watching the ocean in silence. The view had once brought her calm early. Sunrises, the steady pull of the tide, but now it barely touched her. Behind her, Theo napped in a pool of sunlight on the nursery carpet, one small hand gripping a crayon-stained book. The house was unusually still, as if it too was waiting for someone to finally say what no one had dared to admit out loud. An email invitation had arrived that morning. A panel discussion in New York Intimate, all women, focused on modern motherhood and online identity. Isla had been asked to speak, to share her story, her perspective, her experience of going viral for something as simple and harmless as a dance. Her PR team urged her to accept. They called it a redemption arc, a chance to reclaim the narrative. Isla read the email 3 times, then closed the laptop without replying. She brought it up to Thomas later that evening, mentioning it gently over dinner. He nodded slowly, barely reacting, and said she should do what felt right. Then he asked if her team had reviewed the format.